morning. Good morning. It is good to see you guys again. It's starting to be kind of regular. Like I've seen you just a few months ago. Wasn't that fun? But it's always a pleasure, always a good thing to be here. And so let's start with the quote, okay? Heraclitus says that there's one thing in life that's constant, and that one thing is change. Change. No matter what, we can always count on things changing. And the paradox about change is that, you know, we all know that everything is going to change. But just by being human, we're not really big on change. We kind of like things to be, you know, certain. We like to know how things are going to be. And when things change, it's a little bit unsettling, you know. So, but it's still going to happen. It's going to change. So the animal in the room, the big elephant in the room, the big thing, everybody knows about change. You know why I chose the subject about change, right? Because this time last weekend, I was reading the newsletter. I was online somewhere on Facebook, but I heard this news about some change. And I heard that Reverend Ann was leaving. And I don't know about you, but I bet that you had some similar reactions that I had. Change. You know, change again. And with change, what happens? We're uncertain. We don't know how this is going to work out. We're kind of scared about, well, how's this going to affect me? What's going to happen next? Who's going to fill in for? Who's going to be the next minister? All those things that come as a result of change. And we get so concerned about that change. But since we know that things are always going to change, I think that, well, we need to find a better way to deal with it. And my way is my favorite quote, and that is that if you change the way that you look at things, the things that you look at will change. So if you change the way that you look at this change, then all that change it'll look different. It'll be good and not something to be so scary about. They say people that learn how to handle change with positivity, they're a lot more resilient than folks who, you know, go hide and get scared and get depressed and worry about the change. But change is gonna happen one way or the other. You know, it seems like my whole life I've been dealing with change. And the only change that I probably really liked was a change that I can't remember. That's probably when they were changing my diaper. But other than that, I can't remember much change, you know, that was cool with me. You know, that had to be the only kind that was good. But all change just seems to be an issue. You know, it started probably with me, you know, my very first thoughts, I really don't remember being in diapers, you know, that was before me, but they tell me that's how it happened, okay? But my first remembrance of any kind of change in my life was when I was about 4 years old. That's when my mom left. But up until then, you know, like I had a great life. You know, I had 2 older sisters, I had 2 parents, and my folks said they'd been living in an apartment before I was born. You know, one of those apartments where you have to share the bathroom, share the kitchen with the other people and all that kind of stuff. But when I was born, they moved into a house, you know, a nice little kind of middle-class house. And for the late 50s to have a washer and a dryer in your house, that was kind of cool, you know? And for me, it was like perfect as far as I can remember. You know, I remember Mom being pregnant with my little brother, and I remember listening to her stomach and watching my sisters go off to school, you know, how they wave by, just, you know, that Norman Rockwell picture kind of thing. And it was just like that. And in my mind, you know, well, I was a kid. You know, my parents may have had issues when the other kids were born, you know, when the first one was born and when the last one was born. But when I was born, things must have been great. You know, I'm a November baby, you know, so if I'm a November baby, that means that, you know, it was Valentine's Day, you know, and things got to going, and that got me. So things were going great for me, you know. You did the math there, huh? But that's what I figured happened, you know, and so life was just fantastic. And I was 4 years old, and everything was good. And then I remember one night, my dad came home late from work, and he gathered me and my sisters all together, and he told us that Mom had left and wouldn't be coming back. That was a big change. I mean, an awesome change. went from all of this happiness and security to not knowing what the heck was going to happen next. Where would my next meal come from? Who would be there for me? And even now, I get a little touchy when people leave me because I'm not always sure they're coming back. That's that impact of change, you know? And for me, I know my dad and my mom were doing the best they could. My dad remarried. I got a stepmother. I got 2 new sisters. My other sisters went to go live with my mom. All of a sudden, I had a different world. I had new grandparents, and these grandparents, they had rabbits in their yard. They had gardens. They had an outhouse. We would take baths in those little gray tubs and stuff. I mean, this was not the same middle-class washer and dryer household that I had been loving, This was a lot of change. And I just didn't know what to do with this change. It was just, whoa, but that's how life works. We get a lot of change in work. It doesn't matter whether it's me, you, or whoever. Life is always going to be changing. Even the Bible even tells you about change. It says that there's a season for everything. And it says everything will change. It says it right there. And the best example is the stories that you see in the Bible. I mean, can you imagine when Moses was leading the children of Israel out of Egypt, all the change that must have been going on with those folks? No longer having a master to take care of you, now having to, take care of yourself, a new place, and not even a home, just wandering around for 40 years in circles, wandering around and wandering around. That was some big change. But all that change and all that upset, that disturbance, that makes us stronger. That gets you that resilience so that you can handle it next time. And for them, it meant that they were stronger when they finally did get to the promised land. Most of those stories, or at least a lot of them, I think in the Bible, are about that kind of change. Can you imagine being a disciple? Now that would be some change. I'm serious. I mean, you got a steady job, right? A steady job, you go out fishing every day, you come back and eat with the family, do all the normal things, and then all of a sudden this guy comes by and you start to follow him, and things have changed. You don't live in the same house, you're living on the road. You know how it is when you live out of the suitcase when you're living on the road? That can't be cool. That's a lot of change. Maybe you were the guy who had the job, you were the tax collector. You had a good corporate job. Everything was going your way. You had benefits. And then Jesus comes along and says, hey, follow me. And that means some change, right? But you've got to change. And that's the paradox. It's going to be good and it's going to be bad, but it's going to be some changes. Statistics say that most of us will go through at least 12 major changes in our lives. Marriage, divorce, graduation from school, kids graduating, kids leaving house, all of those kinds of changes. I got a change at my house right now. We got 2 grandsons, and I'm old enough to be retired. I shouldn't be having no grandsons around the house, but can you imagine the change that causes? If nothing else, it changes the grocery bill, that's for darn sure, because they eat so darn much. I mean, you talk about change. But it also changes for the good, too. It keeps me up on what young people are doing. I get a chance to know what's going on, how they think, and I wouldn't get that opportunity. It's the ability to see the flip side of those changes, to see not only, the bad, the upset, but what are the possibilities? What could happen? What could happen with all of those changes? See, that's the thing that I've learned is that usually when things change, whether we like it or not, they do get better. We don't see it right at time, but later on we could look back and we say, well, that turned out to be pretty good. I'll tell you guys a secret, okay? In storytelling, there's a special way that you can develop personal stories. Personal stories that will have an impact to other people, that other people can relate to, because we're all pretty much the same. And the one way that you do it is just by remembering 2 things, okay? Just 2 things. So you can do this if you're writing a story, telling a story, whatever. Remember people and places, okay? People and places. Most people, when they want to write a story, tell a story, they want to come up with a plot and then go with all the characters that go along with that and all the places that those characters go. But that's not the way you do it. You go with people and the places. So if you look at your own life and you start thinking about all the different people that have been in your life, okay? All the different places that you've been in your life. When you do that, then you can start to create the plot. Because only when you look at the people and the places and look backwards can you tell what all that was for, what was going to come out of it. That's when you get the moral of the story. You don't get the moral in the beginning. You got to look at the people and the places, and then you see all those benefits. And that's the same thing that you can do right here with Reverend Ann leaving. Look at the people, the places, what changes that going to make? You know, I'm not a member of this church, but I know a little bit about you guys, okay? I remember Reverend Dave, and Reverend Dave went to Denver somewhere, right? And that was like a big move up, wasn't it? Wasn't that a big-time church? Now Reverend Ann's going up to Kansas City to like the mother church and all that kind of stuff. I mean, you guys might be a small church, but I mean, it seems like you guys send big hitters up to the major leagues. You know? I'm just saying. So if you change the way you look at this change, then you can see Reverend Ann leaving as a very positive thing. I mean, think about it. Reverend Ann is about to take all of you to Kansas City. She's about to share all of you and all the things that she's learned from all of you to Kansas City and share it with the rest of the world. And better yet, she'll still be leaving pieces of herself right here. You know, some people think that when you take a piece of pie, there's not much left. But the reality is, when you look at it spiritually, when you cut a piece of pie, you still just got the whole pie left. You even have a little bit more. So even though you may be losing Reverend Ann, look at the influence that you're gaining. Look at what you might be doing all across the world because she came through here and got a little bit of you on her. Isn't that cool? And the reality is that she'll have a little bit of her here. I mean, Reverend Dave is still here. All the folks who came here before are still here. That's how it works. You know, it's sort of like we leave a little bit of our perfume on other people. And Reverend Ann's going to take some of the perfume from you guys and spread it all around. That's a good way to look at things. You know? You guys know I come from CSL Dallas, right? And even as I look over here at Diane, it reminds me of all the changes that I've seen even there. We're doing what we call CSL Dallas 3.0. Now, 3.0 tells you that this ain't the first time we done did this, right? So we're totally changing the whole building, the fellowship hall, the structure of everything, okay? We're going to now be subleasing out places that we used to use for Sunday school, those kinds of things. But it's big change. And we're all doing it together, and we're trying to stay positive about it, and it's going to work out. But this is 3.0. You know, now I'm not working a lot this time because I'm a little bit older, but I've been there on the other times when we pulled up carpets and painted and did all those changes. And you know what? Each time the place got better. We found a better use for things that we didn't know about before. We even purged and got rid of stuff in the kitchen that we didn't need anymore. But no matter what, each time it always got better. Now, the first time while I was at CSL Dallas and we lost the minister, I didn't know what to do because I was young and I was new and I didn't know that kind of stuff happened. We had an assistant minister, Reverend Robert Mitchell, and Robert left, and it's like, well, who's going to do, you know, the little assistant stuff that he does? I just couldn't figure that part out. Then Reverend Lee left, and he went up and started the church up in Frisco. Then Reverend Chris Terry left, and she went and started another one, and Reverend Patty Generous left. I mean, I kept seeing a lot of ministers over the time leave. I've seen half a dozen easily leave. And each time that I wondered, well, what's going to happen? How will we fill that void? Will it get better or not? It always got better. Always got better. And each one of those people who left, they were able to start their own ministry and do it their own way. Some wanted to just meet on Saturdays. Some wanted to be a little bit more liberal, a little bit more conservative. But they could do their own thing. And nobody lost anything. We just all gained. And I've seen it happen over and over and over again. And it's even worse when you lose a music director. Reverend Peter calls it tithing to the universe. When we lose somebody fantastic that's come to us and now they have to go, you guys don't know, but we tithe Diane to you guys. Because that's where I met Diane. She was doing music up there. And that was one that I worried about too. What will we do? You know, the same thing with Michael Gott. Michael Gott was like the foundation. And it's like, well, who else can sing? How can we even have service if he's not there? And it turned out that, well, Michael left, and, you know, we had other people move in, and Michael went off and did great things in Houston and all types of other places, spreading our perfume other places. We had Oscar Sung come through. Oscar is of Asian descent, and I see Oscar every day on TV now doing commercials because that's his thing. We had Andrew Tinker, who was fantastic with music, and Andrew, hey, we tied him to the universe, and now he's doing music for Disney, you know? So as you tie the Reverend Ann to the universe, no telling what change that's going to make. But I bet it's going to be something positive, especially if you choose to look at it that way. It will be something positive, okay? So when you have to face change, okay, there's three things that I say do, okay? The first thing, just embrace the change. You know, you can fight change all you want, but things are going to change. And if you look at it the right way, then it's just growth. It's just progressing, okay? But embrace the change. You know, feel the pain, feel the sadness. You know, yeah, it's going to be kind of sad. Reverend Ann's not going to be here. That's okay. You know, because when you feel that sadness, and it's sort of like loving her, you know, a little bit more, another way, and recognizing that you do care, that it is somebody important. You know, so embrace the change. And understand that when you embrace change, that this is just a cycle. This is just how stuff happens. It ain't going to be that bad. You know, in the end, it's all going to work out. And if it hasn't worked out yet, it's not the end. So just keep on going, okay? Because it will work out in the end. But first of all, just embrace the change. The second thing I say is plan. Plan for the change. You know, and I know you guys will have a committee of people who go out and look for the next minister and do all that kinds of things. And somebody else will be planning to make sure that there's a service even though Reverend Ann's not here. But plan. There's nothing wrong with planning and filling in those spots. I think that's one of the smartest things that you can do. Come up with a goal, come up with a plan, not spend a lot of time wallowing around and, oh, woe is me, my things didn't go my way. Because that's all change is when we get upset because things are not going our way. We're not just as certain as we were before. We're not as secure. But if we start planning our way out of it, thinking about what we can do, taking some action, then change doesn't bother you near as much. And then the third thing and the most powerful thing, I think, is lean on each other. You know, lean on each other. Because everybody's going through the same thing. You're not the only one missing Reverend Ann. She's missing Reverend Ann. He's missing Reverend Ann. Everybody's going to be missing. It's a change that affects everybody in one way or the other. So holler at your friends. Talk to your neighbor and say, hey, how's it, are you handling it? Are you doing okay? We're going to make it through this. Just remind them because sometimes we forget that things are going to be okay. Sometimes we forget that this is a world that is, you know, designed and made for good. I mean, that's what God is, right? Good. And that means everything, every change, every movement. And who would deny Reverend Ann such a great promotion? Nobody would. So instead, take that as if it's your promotion, you know? All you guys making these great leaders, sending them out into the world. What a way to look at change. Imagine what the next person that come here is going to be thinking. Wow, if Dave went to Denver and Ann went to Kansas City, darn, where can I go? I'm just saying, the next minister is going to be looking at y'all a little different. They're going to be expecting that same kind of love and friendship and devotion that you gave to Reverend Ann. The same thing that you did to David that helped push him away. You've got to remember that you've got that kind of power. So don't get sad in the dumps as you go through the next couple of months without Reverend Ann. Instead, get excited. You know, It's been a while, but I can remember when I was young and I'd have my little heartbreaks and little girls would break my heart. I couldn't wait to walk around the next corner to see who I would run into next. You know, just knowing that there had to be somebody. Get that excited about life. So your next minister, I mean, that's like your next date. You don't know what this is going to turn out to be. This could be the love of your life. I'm just saying. I've seen it happen. New minister comes in and all of a sudden new programs, kids get involved, old folks get in. I mean, things do change. It's not saying that what was going on before was bad. It's just saying that things change. And if we change the way we look at things, the things we look at will change. And we can see the good and not see the bad. So I encourage each of you to find a good way to look at this change. Remember what they say, change is constant. It's always going to happen. So since it's always going to happen, find a good way to look at it. Does that make sense to you guys? Now, one thing that has not changed is my love for speaking. And I will speak to you guys forever. I will wear out a sympathetic ear. I will. I will talk and talk and talk. I will play like I can't see the clock, like I don't know what it is. Like there's no football game, basketball game, nothing else for you guys to do. All you have to do today is listen to me. But I'm trying to change that and be a little bit more disciplined. So with that, I'll tell you, hey, that's my story. My story is that everything must change, but we can change the way that we look at things, and those things will change. It will all be in our favor because God is good and all the time. So, hey, that's my story. I'm sticking to it. Thanks, guys.